It's Monday.
It's Monday. Happy Monday, Collin. How was your weekend?
It was good.
Yeah.
Was productive.
What'd you do?
Spent way too much money at Strader's.
Oh my
got my
gosh.
flowers in, though.
I was getting flowers this weekend, too.
Yeah.
What'd you get?
A lot of begonias. I like begonias.
Yeah.
And then the marigolds and stuff
Pretty.
to put out back. But yeah, did that. Deep cleaned the house. Everything has
Good.
been vacuumed, mopped, waxed. I mean, it is.
Seems like we had a similar weekend.
Yeah. I was like,
was
this is the
spring
day
cleaning.
to do it. Open up all the windows. Yeah. So it was a lot of spring cleaning.
Nice.
And getting that done. Yeah. Went to a benefit last night for the survivor of the couple who were stabbed last Sunday. There's been a lot of benefits to help them support, cover funeral expenses, but also now outstanding medical costs.
Right.
But that's been a fabulous turnout in those couple of events. And then obviously Friday was Tracy's Women of Excellence banquet, which was a delightful event.
Love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm so glad you had a good weekend.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, do you want to get into what we're talking about today?
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about today.
Okay.
Yeah. So coming up, there is a teenager is dead after a water rescue over on the Licking River. Obviously, it is something that is top of mind this time of year because, it's warmer. This was a peak weekend for people to get out on the water.
And the water was high. I mean, we had so much rain last week, so
Yeah.
that's a big factor as well. We'll talk about that.
Right.
Just
City
water
Council
safety.
has a lot on its agenda tonight. Columbus City Council, that is, including some investments into the King Lincoln Bronzeville neighborhood, and then also a proposal to kind of push back on the state push to get rid of property taxes. So that's going on.
Yeah, a lot of people are up in arms about that.
Then COTA joins us later around 9:30 to talk about updates on the LinkUS proposal, it's happening, to basically increase how COTA gets everyone around the city a little bit more efficiently. But let's dive right into that story out of Licking County this morning.
This is in Madison Township, to be specific, and a 15-year-old girl is now dead after this water rescue in the Licking River. I want to pull up what the water looked like. You can just see how high the water is that it normally is, and that's because of all the rain that we had over the past week. And this all started on Sunday afternoon around 3:30, and the girl was trapped under a log, and then two adults were hanging on to it. And the fire department there says the biggest challenges were really fighting that current. The water was so high, it was going fast, and trying to physically pull these people out of the water was challenging. And yeah, again, the high water was also a really big challenge with all of that. And we did speak to the fire chief in that area about the challenges that they were facing. And I'm going to play a little bit of that sound for you.
Yeah, they were just exhausted trying to, keep their child above water and also try to keep themselves on the log, which is a little bit of a task as well, just because the current was racing right there. Have a plan, have the proper safety equipment, let people know where you're putting in and when you expect to get out and where, and then have somebody call and check on you at that point in time.
Now, in my career, I have covered a lot of these water rescues, and a lot of them are fatal, and people are just not aware of how deep the water actually is and how there's deeper parts of it. So you might be walking, you might be fishing in the water, and you think you're okay, but then, you take a dip, and there you go.
And it doesn't take much power or depth to get you off your feet. And once you're down, it's hard to get back up. And especially, in this situation where we had a family out there with a kid, you're trying, and as he mentioned, they were trying to keep themselves up while also saving their daughter. It is that time of year that we do have to unfortunately start talking about those kind of things because, it was a perfect weekend to be out on the water. But with all of the rain from the Memorial Day weekend, still having all of those water levels up, I mean, you still look, just in Columbus, the Scioto River, the Olentangy are still pretty high because it takes some time for all that water to move downstream. So all of that's still obviously in the works, so that is why, especially this time of year, it's important to be cautious. And then, there is that period too of like the readjustment because you're out of practice for so long. So it's a good idea to have a plan. This is
and let people know that. I love when you said that. Let people know where you're going and when, and then respond back to them when you get home. I do it with all my friends. Whenever they leave my house or anything, I'm like, please just text me when you get home. I want to hear from you. I want to
Yeah.
hear that you made it back safely. So just keep that in mind if you have family and friends that are heading out to Buckeye Lake or,
Yeah.
I know Aaron White, he loves paddle boarding
Yeah,
all the time. And I
always
would
at Buckeye
always
Lake.
be like, Aaron, you made it back. Good. You're safe. So do that. That's really important. So, okay, we're going to focus on Columbus City Council. We talk about them every week. They're very
Right.
busy. And this is what the King Lincoln Bronzeville improvements.
Right. So on the table tonight is
Yes.
$7 million. And a lot of this is going to be focused on updating and upgrading streets, sidewalks, street lighting in that area. The main focus of this is to make that neighborhood safer for pedestrians and cyclists.
Right.
That area. They're also going to add a big concrete median there at Mount Vernon Avenue. It's going to go at Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and Mount Vernon Avenue. This is not the first time that the King Lincoln Bronzeville neighborhood has come up for the city. It has been a focus area probably for the past couple years of getting it turned over. Just last fall, the council approved more than $3 million to help update some of some safety investments over there. It came up during that. Nick Bankston, who is one of the city councilmen, this is what he had to say last year when we invested that this time, all about making sure that neighborhood continues to move forward.
Getting the necessary continued investment, because reinvestment doesn't happen when you just do one project. You have to continue to invest in the neighborhood. It's all going hand in hand.
So King Lincoln Bronzeville is a historically black neighborhood in Columbus. It's over on the Near East Side. It's on the north side of Broad Street, where I think you traditionally think Old Town East starts on the other side of Broad Street. So it's that whole area north of Broad, from like Franklin Park over to really all the way kind of towards like Columbus State.
Yeah.
We have seen some improvements and some movement in that neighborhood. It's been really deemed kind of the next it neighborhood for Columbus, as we've seen some of these
houses for sale over there.
A lot of houses for sale.
Newly renovated.
And that's because, we saw what happened with Old Town East in the past 15, 20 years, that a lot of, that used to not be that desirable of a neighborhood. So at one time, homes were cheap over there, but then that became a neighborhood of interest. People moved in, turned these really spent a lot of money and time into these homes. And now you look at Old Town East, and Old Town East is unaffordable to buy in. But you cross Broad Street, and now you're in the King Lincoln Bronzeville neighborhood. So with very similar homes, it's a very similar neighborhood. So that has now gained the sights of a lot of first-time home buyers who are looking at turning over that neighborhood. But the same thing has to be said, and this is a focus too of the neighborhood association over there, is how do we, we're welcoming in new people, but how do we also maintain and continue to make this a place that is also still there for the people who have lived here. We don't want to drive these people out
Right.
who've been here forever. And, we talked with, let's go back to February 2025. This is when we held one of our 10 TV Listens town halls over in that neighborhood. We sent Carla Rogner the evening or the morning before that out into that neighborhood to talk with folks about what they really felt was needed in that neighborhood. And we're talking a year and a half ago. And a lot of that came down to, a lot of movement's been done. That neighborhood has improved significantly, but there's still some efforts that need done in terms of safety and infrastructure over there. And as we look at tonight, that is the direction that we're heading. So this is what a couple people had to say last spring.
You see more people out in the community now, to where maybe 10, 15 years ago, they didn't feel as safe. It was a lot of drugs. It was a lot of homelessness. They've came and invested a lot of money into this area and did a lot to clean it up.
For example, the aesthetics, city-wise, we can get more lights. It's not just around the new developed areas. We need lights throughout the streets. Long Street, Mount Vernon, and I think the internal structure should be better. Like, for example, no water flooding. They're kind of coming up on that, but we really need some structural stuff here in the city, in this area.
So the Bronzeville Neighborhood Association is really the ones who kind of look over this neighborhood and have a set of goals outlined that they want to achieve in order to make this neighborhood a better place for those who are living there and those who are wanting to live there. And one of their top goals, really posted to their website, is increase and encourage social and economic diverse population, which goes back to how do we welcome in these folks, these first-time home buyers who are looking at, okay, we can afford homes over here, but how do we also continue to make the people who were born and raised in this neighborhood still able to afford it? Increased lighting, that one comes up all the time, comes up in a lot of neighborhoods.
That, and I understand the woman, she was talking about water drainage when it storms.
Right.
I mean, it's those little things you don't really often think about, but they really make such a big difference.
And it's, that is one thing that we have to consider when we build up, we pave over more things and we build up more buildings. Concrete doesn't absorb water, so you have to figure out how to get all of that water into the sewer system where, lots and stuff, just absorb it. But
wait, concrete doesn't absorb water?
It does not.
Oh, I never thought about that.
So,
okay,
a couple of the other things is, improving the education at the neighborhood schools over there, addressing the crime issues, and then maintaining and encouraging small businesses. There have been a number of small businesses that have opened up over there off Broad Street, or gosh, what is the street that's just north of that? Main Street. Main Street's the one that runs through there. And is Livingston? No. I'm doing my math in my head to figure out. I know exactly where the neighborhood is. I'm just like, wait, which street is that? Anyway, so
we should have made a map.
Yeah. Anyway, so we'll see. So $7 million is on the table. It'll likely be passed in order to do these upgrades over in the King Lincoln Bronzeville neighborhood. Yeah. Also, though, talking money.
Are you transitioning into
I am
property
transitioning
tax?
into property taxes, yes.
Yes, so we're talking about property tax legislation. So this is something I've covered a lot, and I've talked to a lot of parents like in the Hilliard School District, and they feel like their property taxes, they keep going up year after year after year. But then the school districts are coming back to them saying, we need another levy to pass. We need more money for this, that, et cetera. And so this is a highly contentious topic. But right now in Ohio, property taxes generate about $24 billion a year, which is a lot of money. And there's a group that is trying to get something on the November ballot to amend the Constitution, basically to abolish property tax. Which is a big deal. So we'll see what happens with that. But they basically, so this group is called Axe Ohio Tax, which is what this whole effort has been spearheaded by. And supporters say that this is an absolutely necessary move and that the government can find funding where, the property taxes are coming from now from elsewhere within the budget. And there's another group, Ohioans to Protect Public Services, and they say, while some changes need to be made to the way that we do property taxes here in the state, they feel like it's going to impact school districts, local governments, as well as public services that a lot of us rely on a daily basis. So,
go ahead.
No, what would you like to add?
So, at the moment, there is no state that does not have a property tax that
an element of one.
That has not that. Yeah, no one has gotten rid of property taxes. There are some that have very low property taxes. Hawaii, Alabama, Colorado, and Louisiana are really the top four when it comes to the lowest property taxes, but no one has gone to a zero property tax because we do know that, most the school, your schools, a lot of your city services, including police and fire, they rely on property tax funded. And then and Governor DeWine has made this point that if we get rid of property taxes, that money has to be made up somewhere else. Does that mean a hike in the sales tax, which would mean everybody pays more, or a hike in the income tax, so you get more taken out of your paycheck? And opponents, or at least proponents of wiping the property taxes out have said, well, in an economy where so many people are now renting instead of owning home, it's an unfair burden to place on landlords to continue paying these while renters are not. Obviously it gets passed along in the rent costs, but it's an unfair burden is their point in all of this. And that is, every time, we've seen this is a topic that always comes up when Columbus City Schools passes a levy, is that they can always get it passed. And it's typically because, the people voting on this,
right, they want it,
don't pay it, because it's something handled by their landlord.
And then you go somewhere like Hilliard, and
where it's more people in Hilliard own their homes, so it's more of a directed, or they're more directly affected, by it, or at least they see it, up front coming in their property tax bill that you get, in the mail twice.
So I'm just going to play some, if I have it, where is this sound? Here we go. Take a listen.
At the end of the day, compromising property tax with no clear indication to where other proceeds would come from puts us and children, a city, a foundation of a city, at risk.
So that is Columbus City Schools outgoing board president Michael Coles basically saying that, we're a district that is already in dire financial straits, and to get rid of property taxes altogether would do nothing but make that situation worse.
So the committee acts Ohio tax. They need 413,000 valid voter signatures before July 1st, which is a big undertaking to get this amendment on the November ballot. So we'll see if they can do it. July 1st, it's around the corner.
Yeah, I'm increasingly interested in the plans to make up that money.
Right, it's a big question mark
we're
for
talking
sure.
Billions. So
24 billion.
Right, and I mean that is. You've got to have a plan, whether, whichever side you stand on that issue is that $24 billion supports all of the public schools in the state, your police, your fire, a lot of, highway maintenance.
It's still not enough for a lot of communities too. So
if we get rid of it, what do we raise to make up that money? If we don't, how do you balance that? And of course, the rising costs of everything else.
Yes, life in general.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, coming up next, we have Jay Fox of the Ohio News Network. He's talking about a domestic violence registry. This is a really interesting topic, so we'll be right back.
It is 9:16 on your Monday. We are joined by Jay Fox from the Ohio News Network. Jay, welcome in.
Good morning
Hello.
and happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Domestic violence has been a big talker, especially in the past week, because we had that case last week where Derek Green has been accused of murdering both his wife and her 11-year-old daughter.
That is correct.
Which is in a domestic violence situation, but we also know that domestic violence has been something that has increasingly gained attention in recent years. It also has seen a concerning uptick. I mean, the numbers, it was a 40% increase from 2024 to 2025. So there is some action on this going on at the State House.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on the comment about Derek Green, this incident was not his first brush.
No.
There were several domestic violence calls related to that particular case.
Correct.
And domestic violence is not an easy subject to talk about. It's one of those things where it happens, You don't want to acknowledge it, but you have to. And what's most troubling about domestic violence is that more than half of the cases go unreported. And the reason they go unreported is fear of retribution. So there is action. And it's nice to see cooperation from both sides of the aisle on an issue that affects everyone. So Republican Representative Phil Plummer, we know him from Dayton.
Shout
you
out
know
to
him.
Yes,
Yep.
he's awesome.
And Democratic Representative Cecil Thomas of Cincinnati have sponsored House Bill 846, which would create a first of its kind in Ohio public registry of repeat domestic violence offenders.
And we're not the first state to do this. Tennessee's done something similar.
Correct. Tennessee passed the Savannah law. It went into effect January 1st. That was the first registry in the country.
And
Okay.
yeah.
How would this work in Ohio?
So the offenders are only required to register if they are repeat, meaning if you do it once, you're not on the list. But if you do it twice or more, you are on the list. And it's based on conviction, Bryn. So a plea of guilty or no contest in a domestic violence situation. They have 7 days after their qualifying plea to register. The database is searchable by name, by picture, date of birth, details of the case, including the county and the dates involved. But unlike the sex offender registry, the home address will be withheld and registrants can be removed based on being incident free over a period of time and based on their number of offenses.
And, we've talked, how complicated domestic violence is it looks different in just about every situation.
Yes.
And you're also, in domestic violence, you have to take a kid-gloved approach to everyone involved from the victim's side. So this is a hot-button issue that's going to certainly have both sides involved, proponents and opponents.
Well, I'll tell you what my grandmother used to say. There are 3 sides to every story. The first side, the second side, and the truth. And in the case of the domestic violence issue, there are 3 sides to the story. It just doesn't crop up out of nowhere. But that being said, the proponents of this particular bill argue that it will add accountability and promote safety. But opponents say it could inadvertently expose victims' identities and locations, and that's why the Ohio Domestic Violence Network does not support registries. Now, that being said, in my opinion, it's not just the victim whose identity needs to be protected, because oftentimes vigilante justice will be used to go after the perpetrator if the victim's family doesn't feel that justice was served.
And this is still just a proposal.
Oh, absolutely. Right now it's in committee, and that particular committee is the Ohio House Public Safety Committee. And as you know, with any bill, after it goes through committee, then it goes to a vote. Both sides of the aisle have to vote, House and Senate. Then they have to approve joint language. And then if they get through all of that, remember, I'm just a bill and I'm only a bill sitting here on Capitol Hill. Then it goes to the governor, and then he can sign it or not.
Okay, very interesting. And tomorrow we have a psychologist coming on with Ohio Health to talk about kind of just the mental trouble that domestic violence situations can cause for a lot of people. So that will be an interesting conversation.
That question about more than half not going reported, because that's the root of the problem.
Yeah, and we talked with a domestic violence survivor a couple months ago about this, and her thing was it's the fear of jumping out into a situation that you don't know is sometimes more intimidating than staying in the fear that you know.
What is that? The devil you know is better than the devil you don't.
Yeah, and that is, and it's understandable. That is a similar situation that you hear from a lot of domestic violence survivors. Is that what happens next? Where do I go?
Correct. And also remember, and then I'll shut up, domestic violence isn't just physical. Domestic violence can be mental, emotional, financial, psychological. There's a whole gamut.
Yep, that's what we're talking to the doctor about.
Right.
So, all right, Jay Fox with the Ohio News Network.
Gang.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Okay, well, coming up, we have a Columbus-based soft tissue cancer survivor. She's been very busy in Washington, D.C., lobbying for more health funding. So we'll get into that in just a minute. Welcome back to The Big Picture. The time right now, 9:25 on your Monday morning. Collin, we are talking about NIH funding, which is the National Institute of Health funding. And a lot of this money goes towards cancer research and helping patients. And a lot of that's been cut this year.
Right.
So,
there's been significant cuts to cancer research.
And joining us right now, we have Morgan Loudon. She is a Columbus-based soft tissue cancer survivor, and she was recently in Washington, D.C., lobbying to get more funding back on track. So here she is. I'm going to bring her in right now. Hi there. Can you hear us okay?
Hello. Yes, I can.
Hi, Morgan. Can you first just start talking to us about your cancer journey when you were first diagnosed?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was diagnosed at 8 years old in 2012 with a pretty rare form of soft tissue cancer. The medical name is extrarenal rhabdoid sarcoma. So I went through about 10 rounds of chemo and a month of radiation with a bunch of different surgeries, and I eventually finished treatment at 9 years old in 2013.
Okay, that's great news. So you were just in DC with United for Cures. Talk to us about that experience. What were you doing there?
Yeah, it was a very cool experience. So United for Cures is a coalition of a bunch of different medical research groups. It includes Alzheimer's, ALS, muscular dystrophy, a bunch of different things. And it brings us all together to lobby at Washington, D.C. So I got to meet a lot of people from a bunch of different coalitions. And we went around to our members of Congress to ask for increased funding for NIH.
And you met with Senators Bernie Moreno and John Husted, along with Representative Joyce Beatty. Tell me about those conversations. Were they receptive of some of the work that you're trying to do?
Absolutely. Joyce Beatty has been definitely a push for NIH funding. Specifically, Columbus, Ohio State is actually the top recipient of NIH funding in the state. But they were definitely receptive to those conversations and understand the importance, not just from the cure side and the medical field, but also for Ohio's economy. Ohio is actually one of the top states who receives NIH funding across all states. So it is important that our representatives are receptive of this increase.
How did medical research shape your journey with cancer specifically?
Yeah, I definitely have a bunch of different ways it has shaped me for sure. So most people don't know, as a childhood cancer survivor, many children are actually given medicine that is meant for adults, which in most cases may not be a huge deal. But the purpose of cancer treatment is to target fast growing cells. And when you're a kid, all of your cells are fast growing. So it makes that treatment that's meant for adults a lot harder on a kid's body. Medical research has been extremely important in targeting more directly to kids, especially when it comes to cancer. And on top of that, I am also involved in St. Baldrick's Foundation, which is a childhood cancer research organization. They do fundraising to fund different types and the most promising types of childhood cancer research. And I've been involved with them for quite some time as well.
And obviously this NIH funding made a difference in your life. Can you talk about how this funding has helped other people you know that are going through a similar journey with cancer in Central Ohio?
Yeah, absolutely. Many people have heard the term clinical trial. So a lot of times with people who have an aggressive type of cancer that's being really difficult to treat, they can be entered into a clinical trial. And I personally know multiple people who their treatment was done as a clinical trial, and now it is actually the standard form of treatment for the type of cancer they have. So it shows that the growth that they make through those clinical trials, where it starts off as, we're hoping this works and we're hoping it helps treat your cancer, to now this is what we're going to use as the base treatment for this type of cancer, which is really cool to see.
And Morgan, do you have any other plans to go back to DC and continue lobbying?
Absolutely. I go usually every year. I try to go. It depends on what foundation, but Lions for Childhood Cancer is one that I usually go with, and I hope to be back with United for Cures if they continue their mission as well.
All right, Morgan.
Morgan Loudon, thank you so much for joining us, talking about your journey and some of the work that's going on. Coming up next, we are joined by Jeff Pullen from the Central Ohio Transit Authority, or COTA, talking about the progress on the LinkUS project and some of the improvements that COTA has made. Welcome back to The Big Picture. I'm Colin Dorsey, joined by Bryn Caswell and Jeff Pullen from the Central Ohio Transit Authority, or COTA, coming in to talk about some of the big improvements that have gone on with COTA, just their standard service, but also where the LinkUS project stands. And COTA has seen a pretty good improvement in ridership in recent months. What, 8.5%?
Yeah, 8.5% over the past couple of years, but 5% over the past year. That's due to an 8.5% increase in our overall service. So we've added later hours on 13 of our lines. It means 13 of our lines go past midnight, some even to 1:30 in the morning. We also have improved frequency on 8 of those lines, which means the bus comes more often to your stops. So we're trying to get to the point where people don't have to look at a schedule anymore, that they just know that a bus is going to come every 10 or 15 minutes.
And when it comes to determining which stops are those frequent stops and standard stops, I know, for example, my stop, which is the number 5, used to be a frequent, and now it's back to a standard 30-minute schedule. When it comes to COTA looking at which lines now to create as frequent or standard stops? What goes into that?
A lot of that is ridership. We have, obviously, people getting on the bus, we can count that, but we have automatic passenger counters that can tell you when you're getting on and off the bus. Those higher ridership stops obviously or higher ridership lines are obviously prioritized for more frequent service. But we have a 5-year short-range transit plan that we're just finalizing this summer that will help gradually increase some of those other lines to have higher frequency.
Gotcha. And let's see. COTA is now working on those 3 bus rapid transit corridors. I have seen how it works in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Indy has 2 in operation, currently working on getting a 3rd one up and going. And I have been on it. I'm encouraged at its efficiency.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how it works. It's almost like light rail, but not as fixed. When we get to, I guess, Broad Street is the first one that is now in the works.
Yeah.
Where do things stand? Where do we go?
So you're asking where we are in the process? Yeah. So we're at the 90% design phase, which really means that in the next year or so, we're going to be able to start breaking ground on West Broad Street. But what that means is we're making final decisions. So we work with ODOT and the City of Columbus, which are the governing areas on West Broad Street, as well as some of our townships, to make sure that we are putting the best system possible from Prairie Township to downtown Columbus. Now, keep in mind that this is the first time bringing a new mode of transportation into our region. It's not new in other places, but it's new to Central Ohio. So we really want to make sure that first one is designed right. And it's taking a little bit of time, but we have to make sure that we're considering traffic flow and making sure that we're able to coordinate properly to have the best BRT for the first one out of the gate.
And how is community engagement factoring into all of that and what you're building?
Yeah, you have to work with the community because you have to listen to any of concerns they have, what they would like to see improved in their community. As a matter of fact, a second part of the BRT project is that we're working with the City of Columbus right now to discuss with the community transit-oriented development. So one day we will have a BRT on West Broad Street. How do you want your community to improve around it? What would you like to be able to access using public transportation? Would you like more parks? Would you like more grocery stores? Do you want more daycare? So we're having public meetings. We've had 6 so far. We have 4 more this month where we literally invite people into their community. We hold them in their parts of West Broad Street and ask them what they would like to see once transit is improved in their community, what they would like to see there.
Right. What would you say the biggest things are? Grocery stores?
You have grocery stores, more doctor's office, more daycares, more green spaces.
Really?
People want to see more bikeable, walkable communities. I think because more families are choosing to live on the west side. Westgate and Prairie Township are very popular. Franklinton is growing, as well as the Hilltop. And people want to be able to have more options than just driving.
And it's important to note when it comes to BRT is that these rapid lines are to get you really quickly into a general area, and then you take the smaller feeder lines to get really closer to where you need to go.
Yes.
We know that the pandemic took a toll on ridership numbers.
Sure.
How do we get people back to taking buses?
Well, one, you have to make the service really reliable. And that's where we're working on. We have to make it something that you can depend on every day. If you can't depend on it, you're not going to ride it. So we're working on making it more dependable. We do that by increasing frequency. We do that by buying more buses to make sure that we have a newer fleet out there. But we also make sure that we're engaging with the community to ask what they would like to see, where they would like to go, and what they would like to see improved.
Right.
I know, Collin, you said you went to Indianapolis to do a story kind of comparing their system compared to what we're going to be doing. Are there any other cities that you guys are working with
Yeah,
besides Indy or have seen that you're taking like inspiration from that are doing it right?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, I think the nearest one to us is the Health Line in Cleveland. That's been around since 2008.
That's what I was going to ask, because that's used a lot.
But I think for this country, that was an early BRT, right? We're looking to even improve upon that. But we've also looked at places like Minneapolis. Minneapolis has, I think, close to a dozen, or will have a dozen BRT lines. That's Minneapolis, St. Paul. Yeah, Atlanta, they have a BRT as well. We've looked at several places, and not only are we learning that it increases ridership and it around it. So you see more affordable housing that happens there. You see more mixed use retail, restaurants and things like that grow around it to make it a more cohesive community. People in some of those cities literally do all their work and business and entertainment and in activities just on that line.
Right. At BRT, it goes to the airport and back. It can take you to a concert venue. It's so easy in Atlanta to use. So
yes, absolutely.
That's what we're working towards.
And I know, you mentioned that increasing reliability is a big factor for a lot of people, because on these 30-minute lines, if that bus doesn't show up, you're waiting really in total, another 30 minutes to an hour.
Exactly.
And it is something that Councilwoman Lourdes de Padilla has taken a specific interest in, as she's talked about her mom taking the bus to work, that increasing the reliability of COTA is important. And also, this does come down to the hiring of bus drivers. And COTA's taken some steps to make it more appealing for folks wanting to work for.
Yes. First of all, Council Member Lourdes de Padilla was a huge advocate for LinkUS and did a great job in helping get that across the finish line. But yes, we made some great strides in improving our workforce. You can imagine that during the pandemic and after the pandemic, there was hiring troubles. You had workforce challenges in almost every sector. In 2024, early 2024, we got a collective bargaining agreement with our union approved, and that really created industry-leading wages for bus operators, and that made it a more enticing place to work. Additionally, we no longer have a hiring freeze or hiring shortage. We have more than 730 operators, which is more than we need right now. And then we'll be continuing to hire as we continue to grow. The next challenge is fleet. We experimented with electric vehicles a couple of years ago. They don't perform as well as you would like for them to. So we've gone back to compressed natural gas. That is still a low emission option, which is still great for our community, but they are reliable. And we have a little more than 70 of them coming in over the next 2 years to try to build up our fleet and make sure our service is more reliable.
Right. And many of those buses now have Wi-Fi hotspots on them.
All of them have Wi-Fi, which is great because you can continue to either do your work or you can play on your phone and listen to music or whatever you need to get through your day. That's a really great benefit that we have, and all of our transit centers also have Wi-Fi as well.
Right. And how are you guys working on cleanliness? Because I know in Cleveland there were a lot of problems with bed bugs and things like that getting on the bus. What is your protocol right now for all of that?
Well, bed bugs are less of a thing because we no longer have cloth seats on buses. So I think all of those were in old diesel vehicles, and I think we're out of those now. But cleanliness obviously was always a priority, but became a huge priority during the pandemic. So we had really increased our cleanliness policies. Our buses are cleaned every night. We have operators who are diligent, so some of them get to the end of the line. They even do spot cleans, but we also premium clean them about once a month as well, which is just literally top to bottom detailed cleaning to make sure that it's a great experience for our customers.
So what's next?
So next, we continue to grow with LinkUS. We continue to improve our frequency. We're hoping to launch a new line this fall. It's called Line 30. It will, I think it's a 30-minute frequency to start, but it'll connect Hilliard to Upper Arlington to the Ohio State University and then come downtown and back. That's going to be exciting to launch. We're also going to launch our 4th COTA Plus zone. I was hoping to be able to say where it was today, but we've got about another couple of weeks before we finalize it. But it'll be a fourth microtransit zone on-demand service in one of our communities. So we're going to launch that this fall as well.
All right, Jeff Pullen from COTA, thank you so much for coming in today, talking about some of the
you.
great strides that COTA is making. Thank you. Coming up next, we are talking about some federal proposed changes to name, image, and likeness laws.
And the memorial tournament. Woohoo! Welcome back to the big picture. Even though Tyvis is on paternity leave, we're
for
still
3 weeks.
for 3 weeks. We are still going to talk about some sports. Joining us, our favorite, Dr. Jared Pinson with the Cedarville University Associate Professor of Economics. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a great morning.
Okay, so we are talking about this bipartisan bill that U.S. senators introduced, and basically it aims at addressing current issues in college sports, like including an effort to restore some rulemaking power to the NCAA and open the possibility of conferences to sell their lucrative television rights as one large group. For those who are not, the viewers who are not following college sports as closely, how big of a deal is this bill, and how would it change everything?
Yeah, this would be a game changer. College sports, particularly men's basketball and football, are kind of the Wild West, where the NCAA has theoretical ability to enforce rules, but every time they get challenged in court, they tend to lose. And the two major changes with this particular bill is, one, standardizing the name, image, and likeness rules. Different states have different rules. The bill wants to have one federal set of rules. And the second one is the antitrust exemption given to the NCAA, which would allow them to therefore enforce the rules that they have.
And the bill would also allow conferences to negotiate TV deals together. Who would benefit most from that?
Smaller conferences would benefit the most from that. And the way that the legislation is written right now is actually 75% of FBS participants must agree to this. And the 75% number is interesting because if you add the SEC, the Big Ten, and just one other school, let's say Notre Dame, that's more than 25%. So it wouldn't even come into being. The SEC and the Big Ten don't want to pool their media rights, but the smaller conferences do because it gives them more bargaining power.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to the NCAA, they're talking the idea of doing, really caps for their athletes. And we've talked about, this started with the pros, then it went down to college level, and now we're talking high school in many states across the country. Are spending caps on athletes at this point, are they realistic, or have things kind of gone past that?
Well, the spending caps from the universities are now required by law. That was a federal settlement last year, the House settlement. And so schools have roughly $20 million that they are able to spend on their athletes. That'll adjust every year. That's in place for the next 10 years. What this legislation does is it codifies that and extends it past to 2035. It also regulates, again, the name, image, and likeness to be enforced. Right now, schools are using it as sort of a backdoor to give even greater payments to their athletes. Technically, they're supposed to be endorsement deals, but it's very difficult to regulate what's going on. And so you have situations, or at least accusations, of athletes receiving money for name, image, and likeness when they're not actually doing anything. So it's around the cap, and that's the issue going on.
And then this bill would also limit athletes to one transfer without any penalty. From an economics perspective, do you think this would create more stability? Because what we see right now, these players are transferring almost every year sometimes.
Yeah, there's two parts of it. There's the transfer part, which you mentioned, which is one free transfer, so you don't have to sit out a year. Any transfer beyond that, you sit out a year, but also a 5-year eligibility window. So what we've seen over the last several years, really since the pandemic, is student athletes who are there 7, maybe even 8, 9 years because they're getting exemptions. This would limit everything to 5 years. So this would provide more stability for roster building. It actually makes it more like the pros. There's other ways that you could do this. You could use contract law to do it. But what's trying to happen again is one system across the country.
So these players are obviously getting paid a lot of money. Do you feel like this bill answers the question that these players are employees, technically?
So this bill actually takes the language that it uses is a neutral stance towards that. And that's one of the complaints that some people have towards the bill, is that it's proposing to give the NCAA an antitrust exemption, but not at least taking a stance on whether the athletes can unionize. It doesn't mention this at all. It just says we're not dealing with this. And so some people are saying, well, this creates a power dispersion where you've got the NCAA with a lot more power, and the athletes, if they can't unionize, aren't able to return that power as well. But this bill is neutral on that.
Okay.
So if this bill does pass, what's the first thing sports viewers would maybe realize or notice?
Well, the first thing that they would notice is you will not have players transferring every semester. It's essentially free agency at all times, with especially the major sports. The second thing is college football coaches are not allowed to leave their program in the middle of a competitive year. So the Lane Kiffin situation that happened in the SEC this year, that would not be allowed to happen. He would not have been able to move from Ole Miss to LSU until the end of the national championship. So those are just two things that your casual viewer would notice.
Okay. All right, Dr. Jared Pinson, Cedarville University. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, have a good one. Happy Monday.
Well, the Memorial kicked off this morning. Well, practice rounds kicked off this morning. So we're talking about what we're going to expect out of the Memorial Tournament really for the full week. Coming up next.
are.
It is the day.
Yikes.
Oh, well, it's the week that golf fans have waited for all year long.
Meredith,
it is the
resident golfer.
Memorial Tournament at Muirfield Village. So practice rounds started at 7 this morning, and we have really 2 more days of this. Then gates open for the big shebang Thursday morning.
But Wednesday's the Pro-Am.
Yeah.
So we have Peyton Manning.
Celebrities.
I mean, I'm trying to remember. Luke Bryan, if you're a country music fan, he's
That will
playing
be fun.
golf.
Yeah. It's fascinating, how like these big events like the Memorial Tournament, the John Deere Classic in Iowa,
Right.
like that these golf tournaments in places that we typically don't think about bringing in these
the
big
upper
names
echelon.
in coming in. The Memorial Tournament though is a fascinating event.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I used to work there at the golf course in high school, and it was fun seeing all the players and stuff up close. They would sometimes send their equipment to the team shop, so I'd have to be like, "Oh, this is Bubba Watson's gloves," and he would come pick it up. I mean, it was pretty cool.
Yeah,
good memories.
That is fun.
But let's talk about the weather, because we got so much rain last week that I'm sure soaked the green there. It's dried out this weekend a little bit, but what does the forecast look? I know Friday maybe looked a little sketchy.
it has to rain one day.
I think Friday's going to be
It
okay.
is the rule.
And the nice thing is these really nice golf courses have this filtration system, right? And so it's going to help and absorb the water, get the water out of there. So honestly, we're going to be dry for pretty much all week this week for the work week. So there's some good news for us, because that's going to allow that ground to get into a nice play for the players. If you are a golfer, when you get to the green, when you get to the putting, once you get near the tee, you can have a really fast roll or you can have a slow roll. I don't get too technical. If you're a golfer, you know what I'm talking about. But I think the weather's going to be great. It's just going to get pretty hot by the end of the week. But last year, if you remember, it was like, I believe in the 90s, I was live doing the weather in the morning, and it was like so cool in the morning. But then by the afternoon, people were just like dripping with sweat.
Sweltering. Yeah.
It's almost too hot, when you get to that
it's
level.
uncomfortable, and there's no pool nearby really for you to dive into.
You ask about the chances of rain. Honestly, I think it's going to be on the weekend. It's going to be Saturday or Sunday. We're going to get rain. Watch it will be on the last day, the last round.
Yeah.
But
I think it did that a couple years ago.
it'll be fun.
That's what makes golf fun,
yeah.
though. Like, if the rain starts coming down, it changes the game completely.
Well, it does, and
So
you could
it's
have
fun.
somebody on the last day,
Right.
like say it's Rory versus Scotty, Scotty Scheffler. It'll be very interesting to see how that goes. Or it could be a whole new person winning the tournament this year.
You never know. All right. Well, thank you for that Go for Golf forecast, Meredith. We appreciate it.
And I would go for golf personally every single day this week if you can, because the weather's fantastic.
All right. We love it. And speaking of things that have opened recently,
The
we are
pools.
talking about the
So
pools.
a lot of the Columbus City pools have opened. I think 4 of the 8. 4 of the 8 are now open as of this past weekend. That includes like Dodge Park. Hold on. Dodge Park,
my
there we go,
microphone just
Glenwood,
squeaked,
Lincoln, and the Tuttle Pool. So 3 more are going to open next weekend. Now, the big pool to note there is Marion Franklin. That one is not opening this year. This one is going under construction. It's getting a whole renovation project.
Yeah.
So that one's closed. Also, got to remember the Aquatic Center in Victorian Village.
I live right by
It is.
Not to give my
it closes
address
during
away.
the summertime. That one, it's an indoor pool. It closes during the summertime. So, we got those. The splash pads are also open.
I was never, Colin, did you go to a lot of splash pads when you were younger?
Those didn't exist.
I don't think they existed.
This is
like a new thing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
new
so
age
that
kids.
includes Barnett, Blackburn, Linden, and Scioto Southland. Those splash pads are opening, and then the Dorian Green Fountain is expected to open next weekend. And I know like Easton has some fountains that splash around that kids love as well. But yeah, I don't really recall ever doing that.
Yeah, they weren't a thing back home. We had the one public pool where we had, because at least where I'm from, swim teams were a summer thing. I know schools around here have like semester swim things, and they do it in the wintertime, which is crazy. But we did it in the summertime.
That's so funny.
Because all of the schools down there, like they didn't have, like they were roughly school affiliated, but they were municipal leagues. So
I see.
Yeah, municipal swim leagues that were from like kindergarten to seniors in high school. I swam for 13 years.
Oh, you were a swimmer?
Forever. Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. So that's how I spent all of my summers. But yeah,
Getting nice and tan.
Yes. Yeah.
Or burned. I don't know.
You get that.
You're blonde.
I tan well.
Okay,
I
that's
do.
good.
Did not get that downside of being blonde. Of
That's
just
awesome.
burning. I mean, I
So-
always get like one solid burn in. I've got one right now on my thigh. But I sat outside way too long on Saturday.
Yeah.
Oops.
But I mean, summer's here. It feels good. My garden's all together. And also, it's June 1st. It's the start of Pride Month,
Right.
which is a huge deal in Columbus.
Right. It is expected to bring in 700,000 people into the
So
city
many
of Columbus.
people.
It is the largest event for summer Columbus. I mean, it brings in people from all over the state, really all over the Midwest.
The region.
And it is the second, it goes back and forth between the second and the third largest Pride event in the Midwest outside of Chicago and Minneapolis. It is an enormous production by Stonewall, and it's amazing to see how they put it together, because it's like 6 people at Stonewall who put this event on every year.
That's amazing. So the Pride March, which is, that they take up all downtown, that is June 20th. And that starts at 10:30 a.m. on Broad and North High Street.
We'll be there.
Yeah.
So 10 TV will be there again. So
Cool.
we hope to see you there. Hope to, say hello, come see us.
Yeah.
But so a lot of activities throughout the month of June. Obviously, Columbus has its own. Cleveland does one.
And we have
Toledo,
Experience
Cincinnati.
Columbus coming in on Thursday as well to talk about just kind of all the fun things you can do this summer. There's a lot to do.
If you're bored in Columbus,
yes, there's a lot to do.
You're not looking hard enough.
Yeah. And a lot of stuff is free. So
It is. Oh, we
all
love
right.
free.
I love free too. Okay, well, that's all we have
right.
for you guys today. We'll be back at 9 a.m. tomorrow.
Yeah, we will see you then.
All righty.